Okay, so now it has come time for me to work on putting a transmission in the GTO. I do not plan on putting a 4L60 back in it. They just are a terrible transmission. 4L slippies, as some call it, transmissions of glass, whichever. But I'm going from a 4-speed automatic to trying to put an 8-speed automatic in it. So I didn't film taking the transmission out because it's just taking a transmission out. But here is what the two transmissions look side by side together. So this is the 4L60, and that is an 8 HP 70. So if you look at them, they're lined up right now pretty much, the bell housing is. And then if you look at the tail shaft, it's a little bit shorter. But the nice thing is, the trans mount for the 4L60 is right here. And the trans mount that goes on the 8 HP is right off the back side. These bolts right here. So hopefully, this should just go right in. I intend on trying to make this gear selector work because I'm going to put a linear sensor for the gear selector for the HTG controller that I'm going to use. But that way, if I use this and set it the way the stock shifter is set up inside with each of the notches, then from the dashboard I'll still know what gear I put it in, whether it's reverse or forward or drive, or if I set 3, 2, 1 to be something special. So this right here is also the factory vent, and the factory vent for the 8 HP is almost in the same spot, so I should be able to use the vent tube as it sits. So okay, so this right here is the replacement flywheel that this comes with, and it looks like it even comes with the new crank bolts to put this together. So this portion is going to slip into this. So this is significantly bigger than a factory flywheel. The adapter I already have under the car and on the back of the motor, because we need to know, is this transmission going to fit where it needs to be and level, and the drive shaft needs to be, the output needs to be level with the rear pinion, at least within a couple degrees. So I'm about to find out whether or not it's going to fit down there and line up, and then the transmission have enough ground clearance and all that. Hopefully this works out good. So there's the 8 HP. There's the factory trans mount. It's just a little bit farther back. I only got one bolt in on each side. Probably gonna have to do something about that. But it fits up there. It's up on the adapter plate. It's kind of hard to tell from back here, but it looks like it's going to clear everything. It's going to be a little tight around that shifter that sticks through. I may have to space that up. We'll see, but it looks like it's in a straight line with the differential, so that's a big plus. So now I just got to get a measurement so that I can get the drive shaft ordered. And I got to notch that right there for the starter. But really it's looking good, and if you look from outside the car, level with the car, well, I mean, I guess I got it down a little bit right now, but it really tucked up in there a lot better than I thought it would. So now to pull it back out so I can get the flywheel on there. Process. We know the transmission fits, but I gotta wait for another part to come in for that before I can put the transmission in. The other day I fought for like an hour and a half just looking all over the place to figure out where I can mount this GCU. I found a spot above the glove box that I could get the mounting bracket to fit up, so that's probably where that's going. And this morning, the shifter indicator, or the shifter linear sensor, came in, so I decided to mount that and get that over with. So that is right here, and as the shifter moves back and forth, it's going to change voltage. So let's see. So that moves back and forth, and it's going to give a different voltage to the GCU so that it knows what gear it's in, or what the selector is in. So there's some of the wiring over here. I have the steering wheel off so that I can start figuring out how to set the paddle shifts in it. Paddle shifters. Up here I'm trying to get this damn gas pedal down because they want me to cut the throttle wires and route them to the GCU and then out of the GCU. The issue that I've noticed is that there seems to be like a redundancy to the pedal. It looks like there's 2 in and 2 out. So I need to find out if the GCU can do that, or if one of those wires is actually dominant. And the reason why we need that is for paddle shift downshifts. So when I downshift, it will blip the throttle for me for rev match. So that way it's obviously not hard on the transmission. Makes it easier that way too. I've started wiring the CAN bus wires over that direction. Now I got to do the shifter. I want to do an ignition interrupt, and got to do a brake pedal input for the torque converter. Shoot, there's a bunch of other things too. It's a long process. I'm hoping I can get this done in the next month and a half, because I would like to be able to drive it as soon as spring hits. So to get this PCB board soldered in, I needed to use other YouTube videos because I had seen it done a couple different ways. I wanted to see, the variants. So here's the transmission without the mechatronics board in. The bolts that hold the mechatronic board are bigger than the bolts that you need to remove out of the mechatronics to get the PCB or the actual control board for the TCU off. See, these I think were 27 and the other ones were like 30. But this is essentially what you're doing. You have to cut all the wires out of there and then solder this in, which this is the best looking solder job I think I've ever done. I checked it to make sure that I had no continuity to ground, to make sure everything was good. And everything is good, so now I just need to hopefully remember how this went back together, or goes together, and put it back in. But first, before I get ahead of myself and almost screw shit up, I actually have to epoxy this board in here to seal it so that the metal shavings won't short circuit it, and then put this little cover on it. So I guess I better get that done first. Okay, so wiring update at this point. I have that shifter done down there, the shifter position indicator. I have, let's see, these 2 sets are coming from the pedal. One goes from 0 up, and the other one goes from, well, as a battery power, it goes from 3.8 down. So one is inverted. This is coming from under the hood. There's power, there's ignition cut, there is a wire for the transmission cooler light, and a wire for a transmission cooler fan bypass where I can manually engage it. This is the CAN bus loop to run over there.
This is reverse tail light and brake light. Yeah, brake light, reverse lights. And that's only over here. There's more wires over there I haven't done. And then under here, so I have a circuit breaker for the fan. And these two are power that go to the GCU. Down here, I have the relay for the fan for the transmission cooler. And then I also have, this is an LED light, so I can see from under the hood if it turns on also, because I had plenty of little LED lights, so why not put it in there? So I'm getting closer to being done with the wiring, but I still have to pin everything into the GCU, so still a lot of work left to do, and this has been days of work.